Thanks for having me on your show. Just a quick background. Cyrus Parsa, the founder of the AI organization. We basically analyze risks in terms of China and bioweapons and artificial intelligence. I warned and predicted of the virus from China and the Great Reset in 100 different ways right before it happened. So if you want to follow me or go to our website, it's theaiorganization.com. And my Twitter, Gitter, Instagram, everything else is Cyrus A Parsa 1. In terms of what's important at the moment, everything I put out, but the most important thing is really for liberals and conservatives to stop fighting each other, because the more fighting that's happening between these both sides, the Chinese regime is becoming stronger and they're influencing other countries. For example, Afghanistan, we withdrew from that country, but that's leaving a vacuum for China to build their BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, to build 5G towers and deploy drones and robotics powered by artificial intelligence. So that's an important thing that people need to consider. However, this country, in essence, the past year or 8 months, it's falling further deep into what I predicted in my books. Communism connected to artificial intelligence and this whole Orwellian system that's happening. So that's something everyone needs to realize. But the issue is not just with the left; it's also with the conservative side. We need to improve ourselves in every way possible. So to not be outmaneuvered, you'd have to improve your side as well. There can't be big gaps so that the other side can point and say, you have this issue, you have that issue, and then the conservative side points to the other person, and then the entire time China's taking over. That's what I'm trying to say is we're missing the big picture. The Chinese regime threatens everybody. Look what happened with the bioweapon, right? Did you guys enjoy sitting at home, having to be quarantined? I don't think so, right? How many people lost their jobs? How many people lost their way of their freedoms and so many different things? And it has to do with China and the communist regime. But another thing is really the genocide that's been going on. So you think it wouldn't happen in the West, right? Well, they've been killing people for their organs in China for roughly 20 years, more actually, but in a really confined way. So they've targeted people of faith, particularly. The biggest people were the Falun Dafa practitioners and meditators. Their principles are Jen Shanren, truth, compassion, forbearance. Second group, in terms of numbers, was the Tibetans and Uyghurs, and then also the house Christians. They persecuted house Christians in a deep way. But in terms of targeting people for organ harvesting, their first group was the Falun Dafa because they practiced mind-body disciplines, qigong and stuff. So they don't smoke, drink, or do drugs. So their organs was more viable for killing them. So just think about that. We've been supporting trade with China for 20 years. That's been helping them fund their camps, build their AI systems. We've been giving China through business transactions, surveillance technology, but teaching them how to build their infrastructure. So we've created a beast system over there. Just think about that. And they haven't even deployed all their AI system. It's just mostly digital with a little bit of machinery. So in this country, it's being built. Machines are being built, and they're going to come out next. So those are the main issues. And you can look at my last two books, Artificial Intelligence, Dangers to Humanity, and The Great Reset, how the big tech elites and the world's people can be enslaved by China CCP or AI.
Thank you. Now, in regards to when this AI monster is supposed to come out, it seems like the year 2030 is very prominent. British orator, researcher David Icke has made that year very prominent in his work. And of course, the Terminator movies, 2029 is the year the Terminator traveled back in time from to 1984 to kill Sarah Connor. Those movies, of course, are on a negative timeline where the machines took over. And I presume that David Icke, even though he's talking about negative stuff all the time, is on a more positive timeline. He's even said in one of his 9-hour talks that I got the privilege of seeing live in Wembley once, that he expects the vibrational frequency of the Earth to keep rising and rising and rising and eventually take over all the negative stuff. So why he wants to keep talking about negative stuff, I don't know, but he believes it will overpower everything, and the AI, if it's going to work with us, should be able to overpower everything else. And look, I don't know what you think about contactees being reliable sources, but there's been at least one contactee that I know of who said that our space brothers actually are in the process of shutting down webs of artificial intelligence around the Earth that have been helping with the enslavement of humanity. And with those things gone, it may take a little while to put Humpty Dumpty back together again with all the damage that it's caused. But the fact that it will be gone will allow for this speeding up of humanity's awakening and higher consciousness to happen at a much faster rate. So 2030, do you expect us to basically live in nature and AI like the droids from Star Wars live with everyone in harmony when the Emperor is defeated and all? Or is it going to not really be that hunky-dory and easy?
It doesn't look like it's going to be hunky-dory, does it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, depending at the moment, it doesn't. But
it depends. It depends. It really depends. I said that the whole world will be enslaved within 1 to 2 years. The bioweapon coming out, and I said that in June 2019, and within 6 months it came out, and the whole world is enslaved. So the AI thing has already happened. People don't realize it. It's happened in a digital sense. People were psychologically, emotionally controlled the past year, and every way, shape, or form. So the only thing that was missing from it is the machines and the bioengineering of humanity. So those are the next 2 steps that are coming in. So if there isn't safe protocols coming in, then it's going to get worse. That's 1. 2, when you have one side of the aisle have more power than the other side. So for instance, if the conservatives have more power, it's dangerous for the world. If liberals had more power, it's dangerous for the world. In terms of controlling weapons, and AI is a weapon. So there needs to be a system of checks and balances, and there really isn't, because the liberal side controls the technology and mainly the mainstream media, and the conservative side controls something else. So these two are clashing, and when they're clashing, you're bound to have something that's going to happen on a global scale. And I see, like I said that there was going to be extinction events for billions of people in stages, and it's looking more that way now even than before. So I don't think it's going to be hunky-dory. It'll be hunky-dory sometime in the future when some big things happen. So I don't agree with 2030 is just a date some people put out. If people were locked down, we depended on machines, 2030 would happen by 2025 or even 2023. Once you have robots, build robots, it can happen. 100 years can happen within 1 or 2 years.
Okay, thank you. Okay, you did say the conservatives control something else. I need to put you on the spot here. What else do they control? Because everybody seems to be more concerned with the liberals now, because the liberals, they're so brainwashed they don't even know that liberalism is supposed to be what Thomas Jefferson, the founding father, was like, and not what they've turned it into in this day and age. But then again, the conservatives, they have their own flaws, and yes, there has to be checks and balances, because too left and too right is going to cause problems. But what do they control when you say something else? I need you to elaborate.
I'm talking about negatives when I say control, right? I said the negatives of the liberal elites, right? The conservative elites have a different type of negative. That's using their religion, or acting as if they're with religion and with God and being patriots, but no, enriching themselves and abusing capitalism. Actually, conservative elites are not capitalist. They're communists. They act like they're capitalists. they play football with it and basketball behind the scenes. They always talk about freedom and censorship, but behind the scenes they steal and they censor because they're the elites. That's what people do. When people get in power, it's like Lord of the Rings. Okay, when people come near the ring of power, and then if you say, so if you're on the liberal side, if you say something about liberals, people are like, oh, well, that could be me, and people don't want to listen to you. If you're on the conservative side, you're something about conservatives, people are like, oh, we shouldn't listen to what he just said because he just said conservatives and elites are crooks too. So power corrupts. If it just can't be that all the liberals are just crazy and the conservatives are saints and they're just, oh, they're evil, and then it just can't be the conservatives are so evil and all the liberals are saints. You see, so it's like a bad marriage. So there's issues on both sides, and if one side is to be blessed by a higher power, by God, by a divine sense, that has to walk the talk and live the talk, and be really virtuous. If you use capitalism, you cheat and steal, plagiarize, or you parasite off other people's companies and different things, and then if you cheat people and to get in your positions, then you're a communist. That's what happens. People look at conservative elites and are like, oh yeah, but they don't understand behind the scenes they're just out for themselves. And when it comes to the situation, they do the same thing. So the issue has to do with both sides of the elites. What happened to the Republican Party? How come they folded? How come they helped went against so many principles? You guys call them rhinos, right? Well, why are they there for 20, 30 years? There's 300 million people in this country. Why would they have to be there for more than 4 to 8 years? Just think about it. Why would any politician have to be in politics more than 8 years? You tell me you can't find a better human being to be in this position? That's bollocks, as some English people would say. It's bollocks. So they have to be held accountable too. So if they're there and you like politician, he's making 100 grand a year, but then on the side he's got 30, 40 million dollars. That's what I mean, conservative elites. He's got 30 or 40 million from here, 10 million from there, and links back to China. But then behind this and in the front they'll throw out Bible quotes, and then they'll be like Jesus, or be like God or the Buddha, however you want to say. But then they're enriching themselves for 40, 50, 60 million dollars while their constituents are going hungry. Does that tell you that they are communists? That they only use the platform of religion so they can trick the good guys. People always think the good guys are good and the bad guys are bad, but it ain't the way it is. The bad guys show themselves to be good, and they talk good talk, and they make you feel good about themselves, give you hugs and kisses and smiles, all kind of different things. And they always want their positions. So that's what it is, and it ruined the world. This whole Great Awakening you guys talking about, whatever you want to talk about, it's just it's been going on for thousands of years. It's always this government, it's that government, it's that person. The issue is on both sides. Does that make sense here, Andrew? I mean,
yes, it does. Although I think it would make more sense to say that rather than thinking of crony capitalists as communists, a more appropriate term I think would be cartelists, because capitalism that's corrupt is more of a cartel than it would, because it's supposed to be opposed to communism. But either way, it is not what we want if it's corrupt. We want something to be better. Now, switching gears for a moment, you've talked a little bit about the people in political office. The pillow guy, I don't know if I want to mention his name out here. People know I'm talking about. The pillow guy has really outdone himself with the things he's shown to show that the election, the guy who is in office is not supposed to be there, and the guy who was in office last before should be in there. And it kind of makes you wonder if any sort of military takeover is going to happen that could cause a shift in power, or is the military too apathetic and too cowardly and lazy to to want to do anything about it. Any comments on this?
Well, the military is filled with half of them are liberals, half conservatives. So if you say, are you telling me the conservative side is in control of the liberal side in the military? Are you telling me that the liberal Pentagon leaders who are on the side of Biden are against themselves? Is that what you're telling me? And they would have taken over. They would have helped the past almost year, right? So what was the military really in control of?
Good question. Well,
I mean, this whole like, why would Trump get kicked out when they could have saved him in the beginning? I mean, it's possible. Some military leaders and people within the FBI and other places will look at, and they'll want to look at the evidence. If they find real evidence that they can prove, then they can bring POTUS back. But it's not, the worst thing that can happen in this country is to have the military in control of the population. It's the worst thing that can happen. That's when you lose control of a country. That's when you can lose all your powers, all your rights. The worst thing, because this country was founded on a system of checks and balances. So if the power falls out of the power of the politicians who are corrupt anyway, and if it falls out of the power of the technocrats, and falls out of the power of the big corporations, and falls out of the power of the media, and falls out of the power of any influencer, and you just have people with guns going everywhere, what makes you think that someone that's not corrupt within the military or somewhere else is going to gain control of that and enslave the entire population? Think about that. So it's very stupid to ask for the military to take over. That's when nations end. If the military was filled with 100% of good people, and they were all rational and very wise and compassionate and saints, yeah, it'd be great. But can you tell me that all the generals and admirals and leaders in the military that are in charge of all the infantry, of the Air Force, of within the Pentagon, of the Army, the Marines, they're all good people, and they care, and they're wise, and they're not moved by emotions, and they're just really good, precise people.
Well, I'm not saying that, but what I am suggesting is that.
No, I'm not saying you. I'm playing devil's advocate, right? So exactly. What I'm saying is, like, having those kind of calls for the country, it just shows the weakness of the people of this country, that they can't do stuff themselves. They get outmaneuvered, and they want to ask the military for support when they don't understand the military. Half of them are just are on the left side. When Trump got ousted, 600 of his major generals and other people got thrown out in the Pentagon, or they were reshuffled. That means there was a takeover of the military too. You see, the military got taken over to a certain degree. It's not the other way around. It's like, I remember when Trump was leaving, they're like, okay, the military is sending the helicopters to rescue Biden. I'm like, what kind of crack are these people smoking? They're removing Trump's generals left and right. They're in every level. It wasn't just education. It wasn't technocratic. It wasn't just media. It wasn't just politics. It wasn't intelligence agency. Most of the intelligence agency people are liberal side. They're not conservatives. About 80% of the CIA is filled with liberal, progressive thinking people. And about 60 to, I would say 80% of the current FBI, like this generation FBI, is on the progressive liberal side. And then maybe in total, about 65 to 70% of the FBI is the liberal side, from top to bottom. So that's two. Then you have the military. This military is not the same military that went to war in Iraq and Afghanistan. A lot of those guys remain, but it's not. They have a lot of new leadership. And so don't think the military is really in control. There's in control of what? You mean control and support the conservative side? Is 50-50 right now. So they're trying to gain more control. So if they gain more control, then the country is finished. That's where it is. The country is almost finished unless there are some superheroes or a divine intervention. And I'm not against the liberals myself. I see the vices on both sides. So who am I to cast the judgment, the death judgment on everybody? I can't do that. So you ask, what's the solution? The conservative side must be 10 times more virtuous and better if they are to win. 10 times.
That's a great idea. All right, we've almost reached the 20-minute mark, but I want to get one more thing out here regarding the shift of power. I don't want a military takeover of the country. Rather have a coup within the government of the white hats, if you will. I hope it'll go away, but you have to believe that if the positive light and energies are going to keep rising and rising, at some point there's going to be a tipping of the scale where the white hats can get control over the dark hats. And to think that it's all white hats in power is kind of insane at this point. But they are gaining more and more control every day. And I have one source, as a matter of fact, who has really gone over the edge, suggesting that any damage that could have been caused by the needles and such that so many people on Earth are getting right now can be outdone by the release of holographic med bed technology by the end of this year. Any comments on that radical suggestion?
No comments. The technology doesn't exist for the public. And it won't exist next year for the public. So
it won't exist next year. So you say this guy is wrong in his assertion that the white hats can get enough control to be able to release that to the world and not have any resistance from the dark hats. Because the same guy actually said it was supposed to be released earlier this year, but then the dark hats said we're going to blow up DC if you expose it. Is that understood? But they won't have as much control.
If you're talking about next gen tech, that's really old gen tech. That stuff is not allowed to come out to the public. Most of the technology we have today are just things that they could have pulled out decades ago. So in terms of declass, there's a movie I put out. You can watch it at the website theaiorganization.com. theaiorganization.com. It's called AI: The Plan to Invade Humanity. That was showing my role in how I helped bring out declass on the UFOs. So UFOs have landed here. Our technology are from offshore technology. It's not from here. But in terms of are we going to be able to see those kind of things or make public? No. The branch of military or divisions that are in charge of that, they don't even allow the normal military or normal generals to see that. Even the highest people in the Pentagon, they don't see this kind of stuff. That belongs to certain divisions. So if the people in charge don't see it, even presidents can't see it. What makes you think that it will be given to the whole public? That's only if like someone broke into there and took over and then made it available for the whole world to see. And I don't think that's happening at the moment. If you look at currently, look what happened to Afghanistan. They're chanting "Death to America," right? From what I saw, and CNN is saying, "Oh, it sounds peaceful." So, and what if they were chanting "Death to CNN"? Are they going to say it's peaceful too?
It's kind of funny. And one last thing before we call it a show. Think about the thing in Afghanistan. I want people to think about it for a moment. For the people in Afghanistan who are actually saying, I don't know if I want the Americans their troops to leave because the Taliban is going to take over. Folks, America is the Roman Empire of the modern era. We invade other countries more than anyone else. Maybe you should actually be glad that the people taking over the Taliban and not the Roman Empire of the modern era. Don't get me wrong. Taliban's got a lot of crazy Muslims who want to commit commit terrorism and all, but still, to think that you'd be better off with the Roman Empire of the modern era and its military in your country, you're kind of going over the edge there. Be glad that they're supposed to be leaving. They're taking longer than they should, but I think they should be glad that they're leaving. So
we should never get in there, Andrew. But
first place, I know, because of.
But the issue is that China can take over, and that's worse. That makes them 10 times more dangerous. So, right. And then maybe at that time, you know, CNN won't even exist anymore. I don't know. I saw, you know, yeah, it's just, I just don't get CNN's remarks. I get it. I just think they're very foolish to say these kind of things. I've heard death to America since the early 80s, you know, as a little kid. I never said it. They try to make me say it. I never said it. But trust me, when someone says some things, they generally mean it. Okay. And are we like Rome? Not the entire populace is Rome, but our country has been like Rome in terms of its decadency, in terms of its corruption, but at the same time, our country has been a beacon in the world, a light. We've been the force that prevents wars throughout the world. If our country didn't exist, communism, full-on communism, and Islamic terror would have taken over the entire world. So in terms of you know, groups like Al-Qaeda, they could have taken it over the entire world at some point, or half the world, and the communist China the other half, if America didn't exist. So you know, I'm not on the camp that says America is great. I'm not on the camp that says America is bad. I think America has positives, negatives, but everyone comes here because it has more freedoms and more possibility to positives than anywhere else in the world. I'm an immigrant, right? So how can I be speak badly and whole about this country? It's my favorite country. Well, New Zealand actually is my favorite country in terms of being inside of. But in the Lord of the Rings, I love that movie. But America, look at what happened. People were jumping onto the aircrafts to try to get out of Afghanistan. So they were holding on to the tires. As the airplane flew off, people fell off from like 200 feet or 500 feet or 1,000 feet from the sky. Think about that. So if America is so bad, why are people literally throwing themselves off of airplanes to be able to leave their countries to come to America, right? That's why this country was not cherished. And it's the greed in people's hearts. It's the greed in people's minds. It's the corruption exists. That's why it's like communism exists on the conservative side. And I call them the same communists, a different form of communism, because only an atheist or a communist, which is the same, will think nobody is watching them and do bad things behind the scenes. That's what communists do. So as I'm telling you, conservatives are communists too. If you lie, cheat, and steal behind the scenes, you're a communist. And if you use your religion to do it, you're worse than any communist exists. It's like if you look at the Ten Commandments, if you're a hypocrite, but it's worse. So it's like, that's what I'm trying to say. The corruption exists on both sides. And you said it's Rome. Yeah, it's like the leadership. But why is it that everyone gets in the leadership position and it gets being really bad? Is it because there's a lot of bad people that want power, or power corrupts, or both, or that even good people get into power are like that? Or maybe half the country is like that. Could it be that half the country is like that? I don't know. I haven't met half the people in this country, and I haven't met, you just possibly can't. But how many good people can you find that are altruistic and work on behalf of the country in positions of power? How many people have you found that way? The founding fathers of this country spoke in that tongue, but I haven't seen. I think President Trump, although he lacked empathy in terms of gender rights, talking about empathy, he's a tough guy, right? He was the beacon of hope to save this country from oblivion. President Trump was. He was the hope for this country. So, and is this country done with? No, it's not done with, but it's going that direction. So you mentioned 2030 at the beginning of our talk, or 2035, 2025, 2040. It's going that way. Can it be reversed? It can, but it may come down to some big events that happen, and a few billion people don't survive. That's what I think is going to happen.
And you're entitled to your opinion. All right.